Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Colby from Northern California. Colby, how are we doing?
We're excellent, Gabriel. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, folks, me and Colby were actually kind of talking about this earlier. He's here again, Northern California, folks. I'm in Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, really the fruit belt. And then that's kind of what we're going to talk about. In fact, Colby is running the Advanced Transportation Service Incorporated, which is really helping a lot of these, entrepreneurs with a lot of their foods and goods and produces. But before we get into all that, Colby, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is Colby?
Yeah, Colby Varley, 32 years old, born and raised here in Salinas, California. Went out, got my agricultural business degree from Fresno State, Go Dogs. Right after that, came back and went right to work. And it's been nonstop since 2013 and still a lot of road to cover. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll dive into it, but started as a truck driver and now I'm here, vice president and co-owner. Um, so I've had the opportunity to work in all facets of the supply chain from loading, unloading, driving, night dispatch, daytime dispatch, sales, management. So a little bit of everything and just get up and love what we do every day.
Yeah, so let's take a step back. You mentioned you went to Fresno State, home of good old the retired Derek Carr as well, if I recall
That's
correct.
it. Oh
Now,
yeah.
what you mentioned you got a business degree in agriculture. So let's take a step back. What led you to that and that making that decision to kind of get a business degree in agriculture? That's very specific.
Yeah, so here in Salinas, we're considered the salad bowl of the world. So about 8 months out of the year, all your lettuce, cauliflower, broccoli, celery, leafy greens, spring mix, spinach, comes from this area. It's grown here, it's harvested here and packed and shipped from here. So, growing up, you're just around it. We are an ag community. Um, and my dad was in produce sales, still is in produce sales. He's a broker. So I grew up in and out of different produce brokerages. Whenever we took a family trip, we seemed to always end up at the local produce market. Or, there was always many stops along the way, visiting different shippers or wholesalers, retailers. So kind of grew up with that. Um, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in ag, but I felt like a ag business degree was kind of like a pretty good blanket to whatever career I wanted to jump into. Um, it was looked at, it wasn't too specific. So you could, whether I was going to do seed sales or equipment sales or um, harvest management or cooling, whatever the case was, produce sales, it gave you a good foundation to kind of get your foot in the door.
I gotta ask, what
Sure.
is an agricultural broker? What is it that you guys do? What do you guys broker?
So we're a truck broker. So what we do is we go source carriers. So any refrigerated 53-foot semi that you see driving around, we can go contract or hire them, and then we go get a customer that needs to ship a load anywhere in the United States, and we put those two pieces together.
Tell me a little bit more about the industry. Like you mentioned, Salinas, California, Northern California area, you're the salad bowl of America. So almost, I would say, I think it's like 80% or something. I can't remember the exact number, but a huge number of the produce kind of comes out of from Northern California, folks. So just that's why they call it the fruit belt. Like a lot of the produce comes out of this area. Talk us through some of the requirements that you had to go through, especially in this specific industry, for you to start a business, and then tell us a little bit about what it is that your business currently is doing.
So you don't really need to like you don't have to go get a brokerage license like a realtor or insurance agent. We're pretty non-regulated when it comes to that. But obviously I still hold my CDL, commercial driver's license, class A license. I've had that since 2010, I think. Um, and I've never let it go. It's kind of one of those things. Once you get it, you don't want to let it go. So that I would say that was probably one of the more important licenses or certifications that I got because that's enabled me to get to where I am now. Without the driving aspect, I don't think I would have made it this far this quickly. Um, and in terms of ATS, I didn't start it. I actually had the opportunity to join them in 2017, but we're actually a 40-year-old firm. We were started in 1984 to service the fresh fruit and produce industry, and we've been doing that for 40 years. And had the opportunity to get in on a small level after a few years of hard work. And, there's a lot of businesses out there that are doing well and they need to pass it on to kind of the next generation. And we're going to, carry on that 40-year legacy for hopefully another 40 years. So I had a really good foundation to continue what was already, started. But ultimately, it comes down to just kind of the school of hard knocks, right? Getting up, long obedience in the same direction, constant sales, constant follow up, just it's a grind, and if you're an entrepreneur and you're in that grind, like you're doing the right thing, and it takes years and years and years, I mean, I'm going on 9 years here and it's been a grind. And we're really starting to feel the fruits of the labor.
Talk me through like a client. So, you mentioned you're kind of a truck broker, but your trucks are very specific to this industry, right? You mentioned specific cooling trucks. Take us through like the process, like, okay, got the lettuce, got it ready to put it in the truck. When do they call you and who's calling you and how does that kind of process work?
So there's a couple different ways that can all go down. It depends who's in charge of hiring the truck. So sometimes like the people that grow and sell the lettuce or the product, they're in charge of making sure that that product gets delivered to their retailer. So we could be hired by the person that made the sale. We could be hired by the person that went and bought the product and they need it delivered to their warehouse. Or we could be hired by another broker that specializes in brokering produce. So they find a supplier, they find a customer that needs that product, and they go buy it and make the transaction, and their job is to hire. So there's a couple different ways that we can get hired. It just really comes down to who's going to be in charge of paying the freight.
So you mentioned you got a couple different market segments. How did you grow? Like, how do you actually either create new clients or retain new clients? And you mentioned, the farming industry focuses it's aging. And I think especially like here in the Oregon area, what we're seeing is a lot of farmers are getting to the age of retirement, except that younger generation is not wanting to take on the farm. So they're starting to look outside the family to see who's able to kind of take that on, which means we're seeing less and less farmers. Now, with that said, how do you kind of retain farmers, like or your clients, right? As we're seeing this happen, and then two, how do you get new ones? As how do you grow your business?
Sure. So when I started, it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of um, cold calling, emailing, texting, going knock and talk at their office, um, a lot of trade shows. So those are kind of the ways that, you get started. And then once you kind of get a book of business going, obviously you're still continuing to do those things, but you also have to focus on your business at hand. And the idea is we want to provide excellent service. And that's kind of, that's all we can really sell, right? Is service. Especially in any market, there's saturation, whether you're a plumber, whether you're construction, electrician, whatever you do, lawyer, you're selling a service. So you have to make sure that your service is top notch. So that's what we do. And then also going back to, we're very niche in our market. We're looking for highly perishable food and produce. I'm not looking for dry freight. I'm not looking for oversized, over-dimensional freight. I'm not looking for tanker freight. I'm looking for that highly perishable food and produce. And with that, there's a little bit more of a sense of urgency. A lot of this stuff is dated, it's highly perishable, and it needs to maintain a certain temperature. So we've we came to the conclusion, or the founders came to the conclusion, that that's a good separator from perhaps somebody else doing dry freight. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing any other type of freight, but for us, we felt that with those added factors, we could be a lot more successful. Um, and we're not the cheapest game in town. We try not to be the most expensive, but we try to bring the best value overall. And there's certain areas that you might not see that up front, but obviously we are in transportation. Things happen, accidents happen, whether there's somebody's fault or not. And we, if it's our fault, or something happened, like, we take care of it right away, right? And whether it's a $25,000 load of lettuce or it's a $250,000 load of blueberries, we're gonna write the check to that customer, get them whole, and we're gonna take care of the rest on the back end. So those are some of the things that, obviously you're not gonna see on the front end when we're quoting somebody and they say, hey, you're $200 higher than somebody else I got. But when something goes sideways, that's where the real value add comes in. And we've really put a good emphasis, I mean, we have staff 24/7, 365. You call in, you're going to get somebody on the phone. And with refrigerated produce, in transportation, like, it doesn't sleep, right? I mean, we're literally picking up at all hours of day and night. We're delivering all hours, day and night. And we don't just send it to the carrier and kind of hope for the best. I mean, we have people monitoring, tracking, hey, are you checked in? Are you loaded? Did you get what you need to? Is your set point correct? And that's what we really push, is just white glove service.
I love the way you described it. In fact, folks listening now, I really would love, when you think about your business, you think about any brand you're doing, think about a quadrant. Okay. In one quadrant, you're going to have cost. As Colby mentioned, he's like, listen, we're not going to be the cheapest. We're not going to be the most expensive. We're going to try to be like right in the middle. Okay. So that's not the quadrant Colby is going to compete in. We're not going to be in that. We're not going to be the all inclusive, like, do everything, the dries and the wets and the colds, right? We're also not going to probably, like, we're not going to have the most technologically advanced things, but what we are going to be the best in, we're going to be very specific in the cold, or the specific industry that you mentioned. I think it was
Refrigerated. Yeah.
refrigerated one, and then two, the best customer service in that. So when I always tell people, like, when they're trying to build a business, it's like, think about a quadrant and think about what two spaces in that quadrant are you going to actually dominate. You can't dominate all four. You can't be the cheapest and also have the best quality and also have the best technology. Like, it's just not possible, right? But you also don't want to be the most expensive unless you do have the best technology, right? The value has to be there, right? And
Yeah.
one thing I'm very interested to understand too is you kind of mentioned there's a time frame. What is that time frame in regards to, like, driving? a perishable item like that? And how far is your company able to travel, or how far, how long can these perishable items last within your guys' truck?
So it really depends. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, they kind of set the rules on the driver's hours of service, or they do set the hours and the rules. So we kind of we do abide by that. And depending on length of travel, once you get into it, like there's pretty much standard stuff. Like, California to here is going to be this many days, or California to here is going to be this many days, and it's kind of industry standard. But then, there are times where a customer wants you to team it up, right? So it's like we get two drivers in one truck to expedite the shipment. And the reason for that is some of this stuff is so perishable that 24 hours can literally make it or break it of it making it through the door of a retailer, right? So let's just say Walmart, for example, like let's say the transit time is normally fourth morning. So on a fourth morning transit, you would load Monday for Friday arrival. So that's for fourth morning. Well, that fruit might not be strong enough to make it 4 days on the road. So for them, they're willing to pay extra for me to put a team truck on it to get it there Monday for Thursday for third morning arrival, because that 24-hour window can make or break them getting that product through the door and getting quality checked. So it really just depends. I mean, you really see that more in like the fruits. When you get into like the vegetables or the bag salads, like those have a decent shelf life. They can make a regular ride. But when you're talking about strawberries, um, blackberries, blueberries, I mean, we loaded one. I'll give you an example. We loaded one here in Watsonville on Monday, and the truck got out around 5 p.m. on Monday night, and they're going to be in New Jersey on Thursday morning for 8 a.m. arrival. So, that's about 3,000 miles roughly, probably, give or take. And we're making that in, 2.5 days.
Yeah, but let me tell you, like back in before they had the cooling system like this, I used to, when I grew up, I think everybody in the Mount Angel area, this is not, I'm not just not just synonymous to me, but everybody in the Mount Angel area picked berries growing up, or and pulled plants and cut rock and move irrigation pipe. It's a farming community. So with that said, I recall on the weekends, one of the things we'd always have is we'd have the trucks come, the actual delivery trucks. So every weekend we'd be picking, and we would literally pick and then we'd put it straight onto the truck, like straight on the flatbed to the truck. And the
Yeah.
truck would literally leave from there straight to the cannery or to a farmer's market or to like Fred or wherever they'd go, right?
Yeah.
Granted, as Colby mentioned, I'm not sure what the quality control was back in the 90s for the foods. It's a little different these days. Nonetheless, like we truly would take it and just put it right on the truck and then go from there. And now you're starting to see with Colby and the team and what they're able to do. His team's been around for 40 years. Back in back in these small little rural communities, we seldomly see the refrigerated trucks down there, because again, they're not going very far though. We're going to the farmer's market, we're going to the local store. So it's not like we're pushing it out to like, Safeways or Fred Meyer's huge
Yeah.
grocers. But it is really unique, like seeing the differentiations of like especially the fruit, which makes sense. Like every time you get fruit at home, you like get the strawberry, it's like, God dang it, they're already going bad.
Yeah.
But then you have like the bananas and lettuce that are sitting there for like 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible, so you could figure that that fruit was picked on Monday, packed on Monday, pre-cooled on Monday, got loaded on a truck, and it's going to be delivered on Thursday morning to the East Coast. So obviously there's a lot of moving parts to get there, but obviously, they want to provide their customer with literally the freshest product possible. So any shortcut to get it there, they want to take advantage of that.
That is quite remarkable. Again, like this is going from Northern California all the way out to like New York, which is this really, really unique. Now, what would you say is one of the most like more difficult pieces about your current, venture, your current vertical, specifically within the perishable food transportation industry?
So yeah, we're going on about 3 years of just a not great truck market. Obviously, with the economy and the way things are, I'm not sure exactly what the right answer is. You know, they say there's a driver shortage, but I don't know how true that is. It seems like there's too many trucks for not enough orders. So there's been a heavy amount of downward pressure on the rates, which some of these rates that are flying around out there are just not sustainable for some of these carriers. I mean, I could tell you we've had multiple carriers that we've worked with that just they've said uncle, right? Their cost to operate is more than what the market is currently bearing. And obviously in business, you can only take a loss for so long before you got to shut it down. So for us, it's just trying to find that happy medium. We're not trying to take it to the bottom, but in our business, it's very difficult, especially in a soft market. We're doing everything we can to keep it as tight as we can, but also we have to still be in line somewhat there, or else we're going to lose the business. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to step back and say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm actually going to do you a disservice at that price. If someone else is, able to provide you with the same or better service at that price, um, I'm possibly going to fail. And I don't want to do that. And you have to have that wherewithal to kind of remove yourself, but still keep the door open, obviously, with the customer, but just having those tough conversations. You're having it with your vendors, you're having it with your customers, and you're just obviously we're trying to stay in business. And it seems like there's just kind of a huge misconception that, we're able to charge whatever we want, and we're just uh paying as cheap as we can, and that's really not the reality. I mean, the market's only going to bear what the market's going to bear. So it's been a little bit of a struggle in that department. I'd say that's probably been one of the harder things to get a handle on right now.
Man, I think that's a very, very good point and a very good a call out is the pair strategy. Like the pricing strategy that you have to create for your business to remain, financially sustained is very important. You have to understand like what is your burn rate? What are you currently spending on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. Okay. And then what's your runway? As Colby's mentioned, it's like, some companies, they might be able to go under, right? And basically, let's say your burn rate, let's just keep it simple. Let's say your burn rate's $100 a day, right? And you know that you're making $100 or you're making $1,000 a day because you're making 10 sales. Well, let's say cut it down to one sale. So you're making $100, right? $100 for $100. Well, you could also make more clients. You can get two sales, maybe if you break it down to 50, right? You're still, again, you're still not making that burn rate. So you're kind of screwing yourself, but at the same time, you're getting more clients. So it's like a catch 22. But to Colby's point, you're probably not hiring the best clients either. You're probably not hiring the best. You're not probably not hiring the best people. You're probably not bringing in, the highest quality of individuals. So it's like you kind of have to be mindful, but make sure you know what your kind of burn rate is. So what you're spending on a daily and a weekly and a monthly basis, one, and then two, what's your runway? How much money have you saved up? So if everything stopped today, if you stopped receiving a penny today, how long can your business last? That's your runway. That's your runway. So as your team is scaling, what is your kind of like your payer strategy? What have you guys done?
Yeah, so I think in business you need a good banker, you need a good lawyer, and you need a good accountant for those types of things. So obviously for us, we without sales, there's nothing. So we're really focused on the sales. And with that, our back end team is just incredible. Most of our accounting department has been there 25 plus years. They have a real handle on everything. And we're constantly getting reports, weekly, monthly, so we know what does it take to turn the key, open the door, and turn the lights on every month. We know that number. And we have to be constantly as vigilant. Like your customers are coming to you, they're trying to renegotiate or save cost. We've really put an emphasis on not so much on our vendors. When I say our vendors, I mean our trucks. Obviously, we're trying to get them the best amount of money that we can, right? Because without them, we can't operate. So we really have that strong relationship with them. But when it comes to like healthcare, insurance, um, anything that has to do with the business that's like I mean, shred it, whatever, right? Phones, like we are constantly reviewing those invoices, right? And we're not looking to cut somebody out, but sometimes like these AT&Ts of the world or Verizon's, like if you're not paying attention and you're just cutting the check every month, like all of a sudden your bill goes up. They're not going to say anything. You pay it,
Nope.
you keep paying it, and it's like, hey, like we need to renegotiate this.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh yeah, let's do that. The cables, the internets, the cell phones, and there's a lot of options out there. And it's not a matter of you're trying to jump ship, but it's like, hey, your competitor is offering me this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you got to beat that, but my contract has now expired, and so going back to it, it's you know obviously sales drives the business, so majority of our focus is on that, and having a great back end team to provide you those spreadsheets with all the information so that you can make a calculated decision quickly to keep the business moving forward. I think, obviously, if you're starting small, it's hard. You're a one man band, but anything that gives you busy work that is not providing you necessarily dollars, like you got to get that off your desk, right? Like I don't need to dig through 50 bills to put them in a spreadsheet to figure out what's going on. Like somebody needs to do that, right? Kind of like you're a doctor, right? You're not doing all the pre-op, right? It's like, hey, patient's ready to go. You come in, slice, dice, sew them up, and you're out. So that's super important. Super
Yeah.
important.
I that's one of the things I've been doing recently was slowly kind of offloading a lot of my administrative tasks. I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with this uploading or tagging or editing. Like, don't I? That's not me. Like, I
Yeah.
will let me push that off. And so I have brought in somebody to kind of help with that. And one of the things I would say, I actually talked about this in a previous episode, is you have these moments when you start to build out your business and you realize like, oh crap, I got to go back and like start to put these processes in place because like, you're now to your point, I do have the lights and the computers and the microphones and the speakers, and these are all costs, right? They're all adding up. And then you have to your point, CRMs are notorious for kind of getting you over on payments. So like Salesforce in particular, Salesforce, I love you guys, but you guys are notorious for this, where especially with large organizations, they'll go make individual contracts with each one of these departments. And so instead of the institution or brand or organization leveraging their buying power and say, hey, we'll get this enterprise one, you're getting
Yeah.
all these small individual accounts that are usually a little bit more expensive. And so be mindful when you're doing that. If you're a large organization, make sure you're using your buying power. Certainly check them on a pretty consistent basis. Even folks at home right now, like if you have AT&T or Verizon or Comcast or whatever, Xfinity it's called now, whatever it is, like check your bills too on a monthly basis because they will also try to sneak those little things in on you. So that's just a good, rule of thumb in life, right? Just to make sure
Oh
you
yeah.
check those things out. It is quite interesting how they'll kind of get you. Now, as you begin to kind of like move forward, where do you mentioned you guys are kind of going through, it's kind of a market thing, right? Where the market's paying what you mentioned. You mentioned the market's kind of paying you this, and it's not the costs are exceeding the current revenue. What do you anticipate is going to, or what are you hoping is going to happen in the next couple of years?
So me personally, I'd like to see like just a gradual lift. Uh, we went through the COVID thing, and the higher the pendulum swings one way, the higher it's going to swing on the opposite, right? So COVID hit, everybody shut down, there was no freight. Then stuff started opening back up, everything was backlogged, drivers were out, and it swung back the other way, and it was just absolutely insanity. And, as that died off, it just started to fall like a rock, right? Straight to the bottom. So, I'm a little bit nervous in the fact that obviously, as sharp as it went up and as sharp as it came down, like we're kind of in that trajectory that it could, spike again. But I can tell you from personal experience, like the spikes are no fun. It's I feel better for everybody on whether it's going up or down, something that's slow, manageable. Um, that you're not just because one way or the other somebody's getting hurt, right? On a sharp upswing or a sharp downswing, somebody's getting hurt, and it's like, at the end of the day we're all in business to do well. So I'm not trying to see anybody um get hurt, but I would like to see it come up just a bit. And I think, not going to get political, but obviously with the new administration, there's still so much going on and changing that we haven't really found that new market. Obviously, one day the tariffs are on, one day they're off. Um, you know, so we're kind of still trying to figure that out. Obviously, they're still trying to negotiate everything. So it could be quite a while until they get all that straightened out. That we won't see um, where it's going to resettle itself. Um, but obviously, no one wants to see anyone go out of business. So I'd like to see it come up a little bit, but everybody's costs are increasing, not just in transportation. I mean, I talked to person the other day that does a co-op for vegetables, and we were having a conversation on, hey, tractor implements are up, fuel's up, insurance is up, seeds are up, fertilizer's up, labor's up, right? And they're trying to figure out, hey, how do we combat these um, outside prices that just continue to rise? And same thing for them. Let's just say, for example, the cost to put a box of lettuce together is $10 a box, and the market's only bearing 8, right? They're losing $2 a box, and they're trying to figure out, hey, how do we combat these rising prices? So it's not just on the transportation side. I mean, it's in all facets of agriculture, unfortunately, and I'm sure in many other businesses as well. Um, so I'm just looking for something that's sustainable for everybody.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, full time, I'm in healthcare, and we're certainly seeing the strain where the operational costs are far exceeding our revenue, even when we're having exponential growth year over year. Our revenues we're exceeding our revenue growth targets and passing those, but at the same time, the operational cost is just astronomical right now because everything is quite high. And yeah, I hopefully things will start to settle down. I certainly know quite a few people that have products sitting there at the docks, and they're 35% extra that they now have to pay just to get out the dock. So it is pretty difficult to continue, especially most of these businesses. Again, folks, we don't have a huge runway. And so when you're asking for this funding up front now, but to your point, Colby, one of the things you mentioned too is like working with your vendors and working with your distributors. having those conversations. This is a global economy, so making sure like people like Colby mentioned, nobody wants to see anybody go out of business, and so if there's a way to spread the misery, so to speak, I'm sure they're willing to have those conversations. Now, what are you kind of seeing for yourself for Colby? What does Colby see himself in the next 5 years?
We're looking for exponential growth. I feel like, we've kind of been hard at it, and it seems like the best way to really gain traction right now is with strategic partnerships or some sort of exponential growth. We're happy with the 5, 7, percent year over year growth. But I think there's more out there. I know there's more out there. And it's just a matter of putting those deals together. I think especially in today's world, like a lot of people are becoming a lot more specialized in what they do. And it's like, how do I add somebody else's specialty to what we do and what we're good at, kind of put them together and, create a beautiful partnership or, working relationship that is obviously extremely strategic, but helps us both thrive. Maybe, we have something that they don't and vice versa. And um, trying to put those things together. But I think whether that's with a grower shipper, whether that's with a retailer, whether that's with another like a produce broker, um, how do we take what we have to enhance somebody else's business and vice versa? I think that's kind of the way I think of the future with big growth.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. In fact, you know what? And folks in Oregon that have been listening to me quite often, and one of the things I'm always constantly encouraging is the co-packing facilities, because you can spread out the costs, right? And you do have these skilled laborers, employees that are. It's a kind of a unique skilled labor, right? Canning, any type of fruit or vegetable is a very skilled labor. However, if you're doing, let's say, for example, you're creating non-alcoholic beverage, you're using a lot of sugar. Well, sugar's pretty expensive, but again, the larger amount of quantity you're gonna get, the cheaper you're gonna get, right? So if you're able to buy a ton of sugar, like truly a size of ton, it's much cheaper per pound if you buy it by a ton than if you buy it per pound. So if you're in a co-packing facility and maybe let's say somebody else makes sugar cookies, you can actually buy a ton collaboratively together, split that ton in half. Right now, you each have a half a ton, maybe bring two other individuals in there. So now again, your costs are going down, except you're still getting it at that value of 1 ton of sugar, right?
Right.
And so I think Colby, I would love to see that area thrive because then that's also means that we're having innovation. We're seeing economic growth in our communities because these are the small businesses. These are the mom and pops, the farmers markets that are they're usually at the farmers markets and trying to get from from the kitchen to the grocery store,
Right.
essentially, right? And I think those can be areas I've been trying to encourage our local business development leaders to really invest in because again, you're starting to see a lot of closures of large retail shops, and they do have dry and cold storage there in kitchen facilities, so they can create some things there and then ship them out of there because they also have shipping and receiving usually at these large
Right.
spaces as well. But yeah, I'm really intrigued. I'm really excited for you, and I hope you guys continue to grow because if you guys continue to grow, that means obviously our economy is continuing to grow. Again, there's a lot of unique small little businesses, especially farmers up here in the northern or the western coast, all the way up and down from Canada down to Mexico. You'll see a lot, and so folks, if you have not been out here, please come out west. It's a very good spot. So Kobe, you mentioned like the retail spots, the collaborations. Those are kind of really the areas you're kind of focusing on. If people are interested in learning about more about you or connecting with your business, where can they find more information?
Yeah, sure. So you can go to our website. I can send that to you. You can link it in the notes. I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, any social media. We're there. But best way to get a hold of me is just call the office. You know, I'm open to anything. Especially in business. Lately, it just seems like, hey, take the meeting. You never know. Um, you never know who you're going to meet, how, who they're going to know, what are the similarities. So yeah, give me a call. My email's on the website. You can shoot me an email, but however we can help, whether you're a farmer or a retailer or a wholesaler or producer, processor, or even, a trucking company, we're always looking for new great companies to work with and help them grow, and hopefully we can grow along with them.
I love it. Just let me know. And again, folks, you can find all this information on theshadesofE.com. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. We'll have Colby's information as well as a link back to this website. So you can have all the information as well as his social sites. So you can connect with him there as well. And same with me. Please feel free to connect with me. I'm always available on LinkedIn. I do 15 minutes for free calls. So if you want 15 minutes for free, talk about some business coaching, talk about some scaling, talk about what you're doing. Happy to chat. Just do not talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I will not talk to you. Trust me, I have to deal with it all the time with my wife. Don't want to deal with it in business as well. So, Colby, before we go, are there any last words?
That's it. I really appreciate you having me on, and I think it was a great time.
Yes, no, Colby, thank you again so much. And thank you for all you do because, again, you do truly support a lot of families throughout the entire country by making sure our foods and produce are there safely and fresh. So, Colby, thank you again so much. For those listening at home, please make sure you follow us on the Shades of E. And thank you and have a great night.